Thank you for tuning in to episode 3 of the Shakeout with Creighton Cross Country. I'm your host for the week, Brad Schmidt, Director of Athletic Performance for Creighton Athletics. And today I'm joined by hopefully what are 3 familiar faces at this point. Head coach Chris Gannon, sub 4 miler assistant coach Matt Fayers, and volunteer extraordinaire Dakota Dixon. We just wrapped up competition number 2 for the Cup. It was a 5K cross-country race. Sounds like both the men's and women's races got pretty tactical. I'm going to need you guys to take us through it a little bit and kind of fill me in on really what transpired. So, Coach Gannon, if we can start with you in the men's race, let's begin there.
Yeah, definitely both races turned real tactical. Men ran first this past week. And from the get-go, you could tell nobody was wanting to take the lead. It turned it into a slower race. Became very tactical as opposed to a more traditional get-out-and-go type of a thing. It was just one of those things that we were on a hilly course, and, it's a small field, less than 15 athletes. And that risk-reward equation, especially going into that first hill, which is less than a quarter mile in, definitely got in some people's heads, or potentially, as Fayers would tell you, it was his strategy all along, probably. But yeah, it was a great race. Things opened up. From our Team Gannon pulled out the victory on the guys' side of things. We didn't get the performance we're hoping for out of Danny Bonneman, who had won 2 weeks ago, but freshman Tommy Ward definitely stepped up and had a phenomenal race. Actually found himself leading with less than a quarter mile to go, and then ended up getting passed by fifth-year senior Chase Howard. And Chase has been a staple in the program for a number of years now, and has top marks in the history of the school. So for Tommy to be on Chase's tail that late in the race and have a chance to actually to potentially pull out the victory as a true freshman was pretty spectacular to see. And the rest of our guys ran well too. Larson ran really well for us, and we had 3 guys in the top 6, and I can't really complain about that at all. I'm looking forward to getting back out there in 2 weeks. Chase had a great race. It was great to see him back in it. I don't know if Dakota wants to chime in there at all on what she saw from Chase.
Yeah, that first couple weeks ago with our first competition, we're kind of expecting Chase to be closer up to the front, but so it was really great this week to see him more relaxed, staying with that front pack for that first half of the race or so, and then you could see his competitive side finally kick in, and he was ready to run, and he was able to pull out to the front of the pack and take the lead there, and you could see him coming around that last corner to the finish line, and you could see that determination on his face. So we're hoping that he'll keep that competitive streak going and that we can see some more first place finishes moving forward.
That's awesome. Chase he does a great job in the weight room too, and always gives it his best. So it's good to hear that's transferring out there on the course. For a second, let's go across the pond to Coach Fayers, and let's see how the women's race unfolded.
So the women's race wasn't too dissimilar from the men's race. It got out slow. It stayed probably a little slower for a little longer. I think the difference between the men's and the women's race was the men's, everyone was really looking at each other, looking around, eyes on multiple people. First time the guys got to race, or the girls got to race all together as a group, or even run together as a group. So I'm sure that contributed a little bit. Just a bit weird running with more than 4 people, but I think the reason why the women's race transpired the way it was because every other female that wasn't on Team Fayers was looking at Danielle. And we knew heading into the race that the other coaches and the other athletes were going to base themselves off Danielle. And so we took that knowledge, and we made it a tactic. And so I told Danielle, I said, hey, you're not allowed to lead until at least 2K. And I told all the other girls, so they knew that it might be slow. And so the aim was to kind of be behind the 2 other freshman girls. We assumed they were going to be the ones who would be the sacrificial lambs, as it were, but they would lead at the front. What we didn't know is how they would react. And part of that was in the decision process of the tactics. And so I wanted to put the freshman girls under a little pressure and see how they reacted. And in the end of the day, it was a little slower, and that really helped out our girls. I mean, when you got a bunch of sit-and kickers, what are the sit-and kickers going to do? They're going to close hard. And we saw Marguerite do a great job in that last 400 down the hill. Ashley Riley did a great job, and Danielle, she held down the fort. So I told the athletes before the race, hey, you guys are warriors. It's a great day to go to Valhalla, and Valhalla they went.
Awesome. That's some good insights. I feel like I was there. But you know, when we look at things right now, Team Gannon had the win on the men's side. Team Fayers had the win on the women's side. And I believe this is just in, so let me get those updated scores. Team Fayers looks like is at 140.5. Team Gannon at 135, and Team Todak, 113. They got some work to do, but I think we can do it. So, you know, Dakota, Chase Howard, he's leading the men's individual standings, but trailing Danielle overall. So how can he make up points on Danielle? And what exactly is your team going to do to climb out of the hole that they put themselves in?
As I mentioned, our goal is to keep Chase in that #1 position to bring in as many points as possible. But I think what will really help close that gap in the points is looking towards our freshman Siobhan. She's been practicing with those within that top four running pack at practice, and has really been pushing herself well and seeing improvement. So I think going forward, just helping her, you know, keep that confidence and staying strong with her running, and to keep hanging on to those top girls, that will do the most for bringing up our points for the rest of the season.
Nice. Coach Gannon, I'm imagining that not being in first place is something you're not used to. So maybe give us some insight on how you're feeling about where you're at and what you're going to do to get back to your normal standards.
Yeah, I think I'm really not too upset with where we're at right now. I think we raced well, both the first week and the second week. You know, our guys have won both weeks, and that's with, you know, the first week Larson not running well, and this past week Danny not running well. And so I think that, you know, you get Danny and Jack and Tommy all to have an on day, and that's going to be trouble for anybody on that guy's side. Then on the girls' side, you know, Morgan's run really well as a freshman. You know, it was definitely a learning experience for her. I will give Coach Fair some credit there. At the same time, you know, we've got another freshman in Caroline. She ran much better this week than she did 2 weeks ago. And then, you know, Katie is back from injury, and she's getting back into the groove of things. And then Caroline Pass, she's a gamer, you know, and she had some time off this summer with some foot issues, and she's truly just getting her fitness back under her. So our women's program within that team is definitely on the upswing there. So, you know, Danielle is definitely she's tough. I mean, across the board. I mean, that it says a lot for who she is in our program. You know, all Big East, and only the, you know, third ever in the history of the school. And you know, she's been the #1 runner at every race she's ever towed the line in at Creighton. And so you can't take away from that. And so some ways to overcome how good she is, but I think we can do that. We're just gonna have to approach things with a bigger mindset and some good ideas.
Coach Fayers, you know, you sit here on top of the throne and you kind of hear what people are going to do to steal that crown from you. Your thoughts on how you're going to stay out front and keep the eyes up and lead the pack?
Yeah, Team Fayers has kind of followed along with the projections. So each week I projected out, and been about right on. I believe I was 1 spot out on the men's side this past week and 2 spots out on the women's side. So things are going as planned. I think it's going to be hard to replicate this past weekend's performance on the women's side. I mean, some were comparing it to the 1985 Chicago Bears Super Bowl win over the Patriots, and that was just a dominant performance. It went probably as perfect as it could, and I think that was just part of the tactics, but how coachable the girls are. And so really moving forward, we're going to approach each race as if it was our last race or if it was our first race. We need to game plan for each race, and we might have to spice things up. You don't know. And I know that the girls and the guys are going to respond well. They're going to run as team for the team rather than for themselves. And I think that's what's really propelling Team Fayers right now. It's really nice to see some of the athletes. They have a lot of swagger about them right now. There's some confidence. And so going into that race, just having that mental edge over maybe some of the other competitors, just psyching them out even on the line. I mean, we want the other teams to know that Team Fayers is here to compete, and we're not going to go quietly.
When I hear about swagger and confidence in relationship to your team, all I can think about is teams taking on the personality of their coach. So I feel like that's some spot-on analysis. Let's move on a little bit. Come kind of flip this thing back to Coach Gannon. You know, you're now getting a few weeks into the Cup. I'm just kind of curious what you're seeing from the team, kind of what you're seeing overall, and what you're seeing from individuals.
Yeah, I think the Cup so far is what we hoped it would be when Coach Fayers and I, you know, came up with this idea to create something for the fall. You know, we wanted to make sure our athletes had a chance to get out and compete. We didn't want it to be a series of time trials. We wanted there to be something at stake to get some juices flowing, which is why we created a draft and teams that will exist. And there's definitely, as Fayers said, the team's walking around with some swagger, and if you will, and that's been noticed. And you know, the other athletes within the team are not taking that lightly, and they're going to come after them. And so that competitiveness is great to see, that we've been able to create that and generate that within our program. At the same time, during the workouts in the middle of the week, it doesn't matter whose team's on who, and we're still pushing each other as a whole, and that's awesome to see. Yeah, when that start line is in play, all bets are off, that's for sure. The other thing that's been really good is that just like this past week, you know, the race is going out a little bit slow and being tactical. Most freshmen have never experienced that, because no high school race ever goes out tactical like that. And so for our freshmen to have that opportunity to experience college racing and college racing tactics right now, as opposed to having it be later this winter when we have a cross-country season, or the spring, that's a huge advantage for us, as opposed to if we were just training or running time trials, because getting them that experience is nothing that they've ever had before, because high school races just don't go out like that. And that was you know, I had a decision to make during the race, actually, especially the girls race. I knew immediately what was going on 125 meters in, when I see Danielle running an 8-minute mile pace. I had a decision to make right then, to either yell at Morgan to just go, or to let her try to figure it out on her own. And, you know, if I told her to go, you know, maybe Saturday turns out different for us, but she doesn't get that experience. And so I just let her play through it. And she was upset by it, and she knew right away too. And at the end of the day, she was frustrated by that. And same thing with Danny on the guy's side. Danny was frustrated with how that played out. But that's a great learning experience that we can't replicate anywhere else. And so we don't get that in practice. We don't get that without racing. And so for us to have had those lessons now is great. And that's going to help us grow as a program and help us, you know, get to the next level.
Yeah, I think as coaches and athletes, we all struggle with that point where we have to decide, do we coach someone through this, or do we let them figure it out? We all know that failure is the ultimate motivator and also a great teacher. So it sounds like both of those kids are going to come out stronger for it and for what happened with Morgan and Danny. Coach Dixon, do you have any thoughts on how things are going with individuals, or just overall what you're seeing from the team?
Actually, Coach Gannon took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say each race is a learning experience, and just having the competition within our team has been really great for this year, to keep them motivated and just to keep that competitive mindset set in for the races and for the seasons to come. Yeah, I mean, that I feel like hits the nail on the head.
Nice. Coach Fayers, if you got a perspective, we'll listen to it. Or if you want to talk about the Canadians, I mean, take this where you want to go. This is going to be kind of your little blurb to let out whatever your heart desires.
I've been told I I've made enough jokes, so we'll get down to business. I think at the end of the day, ultimately this competition is it's making us as coaches better, and we're looking at what we're doing on a very micro level. So we're managing rosters of 4 men and 4 women, or maybe 5. And so just really getting to know those athletes, know their strengths and weaknesses we've been embracing, and then working out what is one coach going to do. And so when we take this into Big East, potentially in the spring, what are we going to react to the other teams? And what do we learn from this? And then from the individual basis, as the other two said, kind of that learning experience. So as again I said, we could time trial every week and try to set PRs, but that's not going to help anyone. I mean, I know that some of the athletes might want to run PRs, but it's going to be far more beneficial in the long run that they improve their decision making from a race standpoint. So it doesn't matter how fit you are, if you have poor race decision making, it's likely not going to end out well for you. And so it's how do our athletes respond to difficult situations within a race? Because at Big East, we have no control of how the race is. Because I can tell you right now, we're going to have no athletes in the lead. At least that's what Gannon and I are going to be telling our athletes. And so they're going to be responding to what everyone else does. And so right now, getting that learning experience, how do you respond? How do you react? Having a game plan. These things are all important. And so with Danielle, for example, we could go out and front run her every week, but that doesn't do anything for Danielle. But having Danielle be in that phase where she's got to respond, is she getting gapped? Or when does she make her move? So in the race this past weekend, I didn't give Danielle a single cue when to go. She went by herself, and I thought that was awesome. So to see these athletes learning on what to do, make decisions for themselves, I think that's awesome, and it's really going to benefit us long run.
And I think that's what separates good from great, and then the more that they can make those decisions and learn how to do them on their own and be placed in a situation like that where they have to, I mean, the more autonomous their training becomes and the more ownership that they have in it. So I think what you guys are doing is tremendous and sets you on the right path to be doing the right things when the NCAA gives you that season.
I think the other thing too that's happening, just like both of you mentioned, is that because we're in a smaller team, all of a sudden Morgan's a number 1, and Morgan wouldn't be a number 1 if we were running our whole squad, And so Morgan has to deal with those things now, and somebody else has to step up and be a vocal leader when you're looking at our entire team, that person might not have been the vocal leader, or somebody else has to, act as a mentor to help a freshman out when in the big picture, that might not have been their role. But within our smaller cohorts, those roles have been magnified or presented themselves because that person who's normally the number 1, or that person who's normally the vocal leader, or that person who's normally the mentor is now in a different group of people. So it's creating additional opportunities for each of our athletes to grow, and to mature, and to be able to find how they can continue, to give back to our program and raise the bar for our program so that, we can continue to achieve things that haven't been done here before. Which I think is a question I have for you, Brad, now is, you've been at Creighton for a while now. And during that time, the teams that you have worked with, arguably have been the most successful teams on campus. Women's volleyball, women's basketball, and baseball. You and I share a lot of conversations and have gotten to know each other pretty well over the last 2.5 years. And the one thing that's hard to not notice when I walk into your office is that you have an entire shelf of the Big East championship trophies, and that's incredible. And the fact that you've been part of those, with 3 different programs, that speaks volumes to the job that you do with our athletes. But it also allows you to see how different programs become successful. And so that's my question to you. When you think about those programs that have brought back that trophy for you to put on your shelf, what is it that sets them apart? Where does that championship excellence come from?
It's a special blend of everything. It's and we've all been a part of this at some point or another in our life, whether it was at the smallest levels or the largest levels. But when you're a part of a team where everybody that's on that team is giving their full effort and attention, you know that you have something special. And what I mean by that is kind of what you guys are expressing right now with Danielle and what she's figuring out and what some of your other athletes are figuring out, which is that it can't just be on the coaches to bring the motivation, and it can't just be on the coaches to want to show up and to train. The athletes have to be ready to train and want to show up every day as well. And then as far as leadership goes, leadership comes in many different styles. And one of the things that I truly believe is, even if you're a freshman, you're going to have an opportunity to lead. Your leadership might be on a Friday night when maybe some other freshmen are making a decision and you're going to influence them to go a different direction that's more positive. But it's not fair to say that, we only have two people that lead, because everybody leads in a different way. And I think the teams that have had the most success that I've been a part of, every player felt like they had a piece of the leadership pie, but they understood what their role was. So the person that was a leadership through influence and their actions knew that they weren't really somebody that needed to speak up. And the people that were leadership driven with being vocal, they knew that they were the vocal leaders. And so they knew that they had to talk. And at the same time, a lot of those teams would handle things in the locker room, and they'd handle them appropriately before it would get to the desk of the coach. And it was because everybody understood their role. And I think that the coaching staffs did a great job of teaching those student athletes what their roles were, so that they felt comfortable in them and they could excel at them. And then as far as from what I see in the weight room, I always tell my teams, if I know what I'm going to get out of you every single day, that's positive. I want you to be like the sun. There might be clouds, but I know the sun is risen. I know the sun is out. And every day you have to get up, you have to show up. And we're going to be here and we're going to be doing this. So we might as well take advantage of it. And the more consistently you can train, the more success you'll have. It's not the rah-rah person in the weight room that's having the success. It's the person that shows up every day with the same focus, with the same intent, and pushes themselves to get 1% better, that ends up having the most success.
No, that's a great insight for sure. Absolutely. On both perspectives, both from a team culture and leadership perspective, but also just from the day to day. And that's one of the things that we talk about within our program quite a bit, is just day by day. We're not going to do anything in one workout. It's the day by day. It's the mile by mile, the details, the little things that are going to get us to the end goal for what we have. So that's great insight from you and from the expertise that you have and all the teams that you've worked with that have brought home that hardware. So I appreciate that.
Yes. So let's pivot real quick, and I'm going to kind of bring you guys into my area. So what I did with my staff during the pandemic is we would have staff meetings and we did a little book discussion, and then we would do what we called a rapid fire round. So for example, if we read something in the book about stress, we were reading Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, which is a great book on stress and coping. And I would say one line from the book or maybe one idea, and we just go around the Zoom squares and you had to fire back with maybe one or two words, kind of an initial thought or maybe just your feeling on something. So I want to play a little rapid fire with you guys. I have 5 things that I'm going to say. I'll say them one at a time, and let's just go around the squares, and based on my screen, let's go Coach Gannon, Coach Fayers, Coach Dixon, because then it kind of circles back to me and that'll work easy for my mind. So the first thing that I want to say is banana bread, chocolate chip, or no chocolate chip. Go.
More importantly, is it gluten-free?
Coach Fayers?
No, plain banana bread.
Okay. Coach Dixon?
Chocolate chip.
Okay. All right. So number 2, back squat or front squat?
Front squat all day long, twice on Sundays.
I'll go with the back squat.
Back squat, I guess.
Okay. Number 3, hopefully you guys know who these people are. LeBron James or Michael Jordan?
Oh, that's not even a question. MJ, come on.
I will also go with Michael Jordan.
I third that as well.
Okay. Number 4, I think you guys will enjoy this one. If you were a professional wrestler, what would your stage name be?
I have no clue. Yeah, I really don't know. I don't know. George Washington.
I feel like Gannon would be a good Gannonator. The Gannonator. I think I would have to play off the English heritage. So we would go with something like the it's a skinny Englishman.
Half pint.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, Coach Dixon, what you got?
I guess I'll base mine off the uniform, spandex magic.
All right, so last question. Omaha is known as being kind of a foodie town. So I want you to give me the restaurant that maybe your freshmen haven't gone to yet, and they have to get there before they leave Omaha for Christmas break.
Angus Burger, hands down.
I would have to second Angus Burger, but I feel like our freshmen will either go or they have the opportunity. So I'm gonna have to say they will have to try Gannon's home cooking.
I think I've only tried just as many places as they have since I've only lived in Omaha for a year. Because my top two would be Noli's and Moolah, so I think most of them have been there.
Hey, those are good choices. Awesome. Well, that's all I got for you guys. Everybody feel comfortable and confident in that rapid fire. Hopefully I didn't make you too nervous. But I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We had a great time. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. And we hope you join us next week on the Shakeout with CU Cross Country. Until next time, I'm Brad Schmidt. And remember, eyes up and go Jays.